Amara Lewis pushed open the heavy glass doors of the downtown financial district's most prestigious bank, her heels clicking confidently against the polished marble floor. She had been here countless times before, though not always at this branch, and normally her transactions were handled with speed and respect. Today, however, would be different. Dressed in a tailored navy suit and carrying a sleek leather briefcase, Amara projected authority and success, yet the moment the teller glanced at her, she saw the shift in his demeanor, a flicker of skepticism that made her stomach tighten. She approached the counter with a calm smile and requested a sizable withdrawal, funds she needed for a time-sensitive investment deal her company was negotiating. The teller's expression faltered. "That's quite a large sum," he said, glancing her over as if the amount alone disqualified her from legitimacy. Amara, unfazed, handed him her identification and account information. She had multiple forms of ID, her signature was on record, and her account balance was more than sufficient. Still, he hesitated, pursing his lips before muttering under his breath, "One moment," and scurrying off to whisper with his manager. Amara folded her arms, watching as their conversation grew animated, their glances flicking back to her as though she were some kind of suspect. A few minutes later, the teller returned with a forced smile, telling her the transaction needed extra verification. She knew what that meant. She had lived through it too many times. The double standards, the stalling tactics, the way her skin color somehow made her credentials less believable. Around her, other customers were helped swiftly, their checks cashed, and withdrawals approved without delay, while she was left standing in limbo. Amara's patience was tested as the minutes dragged on, yet she refused to give them the satisfaction of frustration. Instead, she studied the bank's ornate ceiling, the classical paintings on the walls, and the brass nameplates on the offices lining the lobby, each representing authority she actually outranked, but none of them knew. She thought of the thousands of employees who depended on her leadership, the communities her company invested in, and the barriers she had broken as one of the few black women leading a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And yet here she was being treated like a criminal for simply trying to access her own money. The teller returned again, this time with the manager, a man with a smug grin and clipped tone. "I'm sorry, Miss Lewis," he said, emphasizing her name as though he doubted it belonged to her, "but we can't process this withdrawal today. Perhaps you should try a smaller amount." Amara tilted her head, her calm composure hiding the fire brewing inside her. "Are you denying me access to my own funds?" she asked softly, her voice carrying a weight that made the nearby customers glance over. The manager shrugged. "Our policies are in place for a reason. If you don't like it, you're free to take your business elsewhere." Amara's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. She could feel the room shifting, whispers starting, eyes watching. They thought she would back down, that she would walk away embarrassed. What they didn't realize was that Amara wasn't just any customer, and this wasn't just another bank account. This was her bank, and in due time, they were going to learn exactly who they were dealing with. The air inside the bank had shifted into a strange mix of tension and discomfort, the kind that prickled along the skin and made every whispered word feel heavier. Amara stood her ground, poised and calm, while the manager smirked with the self-importance of a man convinced he held power over her. The teller lingered behind him, avoiding her gaze, clearly aware that something was wrong but too afraid to challenge his superior. "Ms. Lewis," the manager said, his voice dripping with condescension, "these amounts require careful oversight. I'm sure you understand that we have to prevent fraud. It's nothing personal." But Amara knew it was personal. Every pause, every excuse, every sideways glance at her appearance said so. Other customers were beginning to notice the delay. A young couple at the next counter exchanged confused glances. An older man shook his head, muttering, "Always another hoop for some people." Amara tapped a manicured finger lightly against the counter, not in impatience, but as if she were calculating the exact moment to strike. Finally, she leaned forward, her voice low but firm. "I have presented you with valid identification, account details, and sufficient funds. If you are refusing this transaction, I will require a written statement signed by you explaining why." The manager stiffened. He hadn't expected pushback, certainly not delivered with such sharp precision. He cleared his throat, trying to mask his discomfort with arrogance. That won't be necessary. As I said, our policies are in place. We reserve the right to deny suspicious activity. The word suspicious hung in the air like poison. A few nearby customers turned toward him, narrowing their eyes, and one woman pulled out her phone, discreetly recording the exchange. Amara noticed, and it made her decision easier. Slowly, she reached into her briefcase and withdrew a sleek black folder embossed with a gold seal. She placed it on the counter with deliberate grace, sliding it toward the manager. His brows furrowed as he opened it, his confident expression faltering almost instantly. Inside were shareholder documents, stamped and notarized, bearing her name in bold letters, Amara Lewis, majority shareholder and chairwoman of the board. His hands trembled slightly as he flipped through the pages, each one hammering away at his illusion of superiority. But Amara wasn't done. From the folder, she pulled out another letter, one on official bank letterhead signed by the board's legal counsel, affirming her executive authority over all branches of the institution. "Do you still believe," she asked evenly, her gaze never wavering, "that I am suspicious, Mr. Collins?" His name rolled off her tongue like a reprimand. The manager's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His eyes darted to the teller, to the customers watching, to the woman with the phone raised, just slightly higher now. The power dynamic had shifted so drastically it left him visibly rattled. He was no longer the gatekeeper, no longer the authority. He was a man standing on thin ice, and Amara had just taken a hammer to it. She straightened, reclaiming her documents with calm efficiency. "You've denied me service, delayed my time, and disrespected me in front of witnesses. But what you've truly done," she said, her voice cutting through the silence, "is prove exactly why leadership in this institution needs to change." The hush that followed was absolute. The teller looked pale, the manager looked cornered, and Amara knew the stage was set. The real revelation was still to come, and when it did, it would end any trace of arrogance left in that room. The silence in the bank thickened until it felt almost suffocating, the kind of silence that prickled with unease, where every breath and shuffle of feet seemed amplified. The manager's smug veneer had crumbled the moment he saw the documents, but his pride wouldn't allow him to admit defeat so easily. He stammered, This doesn't change the fact that policies must be followed," though his voice cracked under the weight of his own uncertainty. Amara didn't bother to respond right away. Instead, she allowed the tension to hang, let him squirm in front of the growing crowd of customers who were now openly paying attention. Finally, she tilted her head slightly, her voice calm but edged with steel. "Policies," she repeated. "Mr. Collins, I wrote half of them. Every major policy revision for the last 2 fiscal years came across my desk. Every operational procedure you claim to enforce, I approved. And the account you're so eager to call suspicious happens to be a corporate treasury account that funds this very branch's payroll." In other words, she leaned closer, her eyes pinning him in place, "The money you just denied me is what pays your salary." A sharp intake of breath rippled through the bystanders, and the manager visibly paled, his confidence collapsing like wet paper. His lips moved, but the words tangled together, leaving only broken fragments of excuses. Amara continued, her tone never rising, yet somehow commanding the entire room. "What concerns me isn't your ignorance, it's your arrogance. That you would look at me, dismiss my credentials, ignore the legitimacy of my request, and hide behind vague notions of suspicion. Do you know what that tells me, Mr. Collins? That you've forgotten who you serve. This bank exists for its clients, its shareholders, and its leadership, not for your ego." The teller shifted uncomfortably, his eyes wide, as though silently begging the manager to do something to fix the mess. The woman with the phone recording raised her eyebrows, whispering to someone nearby, "She owns the bank. She literally owns it." The word spread quickly among the customers, and soon the murmurs became a hum of disbelief, admiration, and for some, satisfaction at seeing arrogance brought low. Amara reached into her folder once more and produced a smaller card, a platinum-embossed executive access card with her name engraved beneath the title chairwoman. She placed it on the counter between them with deliberate finality, her gaze never breaking. You've humiliated a client, obstructed lawful banking activity, and undermined this institution's reputation. And you did it while standing in front of the one person in this room you cannot afford to insult. Her words sliced through the room, leaving no room for rebuttal. The manager's face flushed crimson, then drained to a sickly white as the weight of her identity settled on him like a boulder. He tried to speak again, but his voice came out as a whisper, cracked and desperate. I didn't know. Amara's expression softened slightly, though it wasn't mercy, it was disappointment. That's exactly the problem, she said. You didn't care to know. You assumed. You judged. And in doing so, you disrespected not just me, but the values this institution is supposed to uphold. She gathered her documents with the same quiet dignity she had shown from the beginning, sliding them back into her folder with practiced ease. Then she straightened, her presence radiating authority so profoundly that no one dared to move or breathe too loudly. You've made your decision today, Mr. Collins, she said, her tone final. Now I will make mine. And with that, she turned toward the waiting crowd, each step echoing like the toll of a bell, every eye following her as the realization spread that the woman they had just seen demeaned was, in truth, the one who held the keys to their entire financial world.